speaking of a legacy of a man that goes back all the way to 1991, right here on this very studio, TTT, back in those days, I think it was called Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago with Hansley. Ajodha, good morning, Hansley.
Hi, morning. Actually, it began when, and Noel Simeon would remember this,
Yes.
when Brian Lara was captain of the West Indies team. This is how we started the morning show, and they would take the break. At that time, West Indies was touring. They were touring South Africa.
Yes.
And we came up during the 20-minute break, Colin Murray and I, and that's how we started a morning show.
Oh, wow.
And then, of course, it evolved after
But
West Indies left South Africa.
One of the very significant segments that you did, and then I did it after, was the Vision on Mission. Every Thursday it used to be, I believe. Well, on my time. I'm not sure on your time.
Well, it was every week.
Every week, once a week with Wayne.
How it started, Wayne had just come out of prison.
Right.
Together with Gary Grant, Kurt Manzano, and Colin Craig.
Yeah.
Colin Craig, who is also deceased. They had gone to the newspapers. They'd gone to just about every media house, and they were rejected. And then my producer came outside and said, well, there are some prisoners, some boys ex-prisoners who just are looking to tell their story. And I came outside, I met Wayne outside, and the rest is history. I decided that we were going to tell their story.
Yeah.
We forged a very, very strong friendship because I realized that what he was doing needed exposure.
Yes.
So right after that, I went to Republic Bank right here on Independence Square, and we established an account for Wayne. Wayne was the signatory at that time, and I think Gary Grant as well. And we were asking members of the public, of course, during that time, because there was no funding, to donate money to the account. We would advertise right here on TTT, the account number, and people started donating.
Yes.
One lady donated a car.
Really?
Yes, I would remember that, a station wagon, a Corolla station wagon, because we had gone, I had approached at that time, the United National Congress was in power at that time. Bastille Pandey was Prime Minister.
Yeah.
I'd approached Kelvin Ramnath for one of the Petrotrin buses so that we could move around to the schools.
Right.
I'm
because
still
he would
waiting
go
on the
to the
bus.
schools. Still
waiting on
but
the
he
bus.
did make it to the schools, though.
Yeah.
He made it to
No,
schools.
I trained the guys.
Yeah.
I trained them. I had a camcorder, and we trained each other at my home in Chancellor Hill, because I lived just after Brian Lara in those days, just above Brian. And I trained them on a camcorder, and we would film the work that was being done not only in the jails, but in the schools as well.
Yes.
There would be a full auditorium of students who wanted to hear the story of Vision on Mission, because by the time Wayne and they had started on TTT here, they were heroes. They became national heroes.
Yes. Yeah.
The first fundraiser, because money was the problem to move us around, and at that time we were knocking on doors, and the public, you know, the Trinidad and Tobago public, they're really marvelous people. I have a lot of confidence in our people because they supported us.
Yeah.
Outside of that, getting government subvention and that sort of thing was very, very difficult.
In the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning.
But then later on, he got so much support, which was because I think it had to do with the fact that he demonstrated that restorative justice was possible.
And it was important to the country.
Yes.
At that time, crime was not really a big issue. Crime had come down to about 2 figures during Mr. Pandey's regime. But just after July 27, 1990, of which I was a part of, crime started to spike in 1991, and we started to see it going down. But recidivism was a big issue. Fellas coming out of jail, having nowhere to go, and returning to a life of crime. And that is what Wayne and they started to work at. And then there was a youth prevention element to it, youth going into crime, because we realized that youth were a target. 1990 was indicative of that. That youths were a target and were being brought in. They were susceptible, they were vulnerable, and they were being brought in by nefarious elements within the society. And that's what Wayne was fighting. We were fighting.
Because he had lived it, and he would speak passionately about the fact that he knew what it was like to be in prison. He knew what it was like at the end. And you know, in those early days, did you think, Hansley, in those early days, that what Wayne accomplished now, because he has the men's home, and he recently opened the women's home, that did you think in those days when he was just doing the interviews and going out to schools, that this would be where it would become, what it would become.
Wayne spent a lot of time at my home, and together with members of the group, different members of the group, and we spoke about where we wanted to go, where, and that we needed transport, we needed to get the message outside of just television. We needed to touch lives, we needed to interact with people. So Wayne had it in his mind. As a matter of fact, there's a funny story. My better half was working at Republic Bank at the time. Wayne, of course, robbed banks when he was active.
Right.
And I had left them to come down to TDT to do Dateline. And I left 4 of them in my home. And she came home from work and walked through the door, and she saw them. And Wayne just said, Hansley, you should have seen her face. He stopped her, he said, it's all right, it's all right.
Yes.
But she would wake up in the morning and see them on television, so she wasn't that worried.
She was comfortable, yeah.
But of course, it was a nervous experience. Wayne said she almost fainted.
Yeah.
The first fundraiser was a barbecue. It was at my home, and we had about 10 or 11 pits. Prisons officers came, and we all, and other ex-prisoners, and we did the barbecue. Sold it on Independence Square.
Right.
That's where Wayne met his wife.
Giselle.
She was working at First Citizens Bank. Yes. Wayne and I and the rest of the boys, we were selling barbecue.
And that evolved into the Bacon Shack in St. James.
Yeah.
This massive tent and tables and venture on weekends.
Wayne and I went down. Yeah. It was actually near Sat Maharaj's home.
Right. Yeah.
In Charflair, and we started renting this place, paid down on the place, and we started up the little kitchen there. But it was also to house boys, and this is the major problem. And this is what Wayne has been fighting for. Boys are coming out of jail, and they have nowhere to go.
Yes.
So we needed to provide a place for them to stay.
Yeah.
And eventually they outgrew that, and we had to expand.
Yeah, well, it's wonderful now that if you go through Wayne's social media pages, you see all the beautiful interior that's available now as the inmates, as ex-inmates come out. And we actually have Hansley. I want to thank you, and we can talk about Wayne for the entire show. And you know, Wayne could have spoken for the entire show himself, right? He's probably speaking in heaven now and having them laughing.
I just wanted, Lisa, just to quickly thank the people who assisted in those days, and of course within recent times. Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj was the first person who jumped in and said he developed something called a Score with the Law program, which is where the funding had started. The late Prime Minister, Patrick Manning, Mrs. Manning, also to Glenn Ramadas Singh, Devant Maharaj, as a matter of fact, when he was Agriculture Minister, donated the lands that the prisoners now work on and where that thing is actually housed. Glenn Ramadas Singh assisted, and to this Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley.
Yes.
To Dr. Rowley, because he became a major supporter. He understood.
Yes.
I think Dr. Rowley and I shared that same vision in common, because we grew up with boys on the rough side of the town. I grew up in San Fernando. So to these people, Harry Harnarain as well.
Right, and let's not forget Wayne Lutchman as well, who passed, who was
Bill
one
Lutchman
of the early,
started the board.
William Lutchman, rather, yes.
And he's a TDT boy as well.
Correct, yes.
So Trinidad and Tobago Television, really, Vision and Mission, found its home here. And its first chairman of the board was William Lutchman, who worked at TTT.
Yes. For years, TTT really worked with Wayne. But we have to leave you there and go across, because we have some voices of the former inmates who